So chapter 6 talks about working in regulated spaces. How is government different to private enterprise and, for that matter, not-for-profits or even non-government organizations? Well, the first thing is that budget cycles and procurement happen under rules and requirements. If you're in government and you want to have a certain budget in a government agency, there is a lot of politics around that. And securing that annual budget is a big deal. Having proven that you've spent your money wisely in the past is a big deal. And in fact, it's not your money, it's taxpayers' money. And for all the transparency that's required in budgets, in procurement, in who do you contract to, why do you contract to them, this is something that increasingly we have to pay more attention to. And there are cycles, budget cycles that we need to pay attention to. There is the introduction of new government, perhaps that may influence where money might go. For example, steering it away from health and into primary industries or services or what have you. Procurement is another area that again requires a lot of rules. We're now opening in government procurement systems to open tendering. Some of these are not just local, but beyond. You could be contracting to someone right in the other side of the world and saying, these are the best people and the best price for what I'm trying to do. Increasingly, there's been a lot of discussion about sourcing componentry from countries that have been perceived to either be enemy states or have been perceived as having some kind of cloud around them. Better not to say more on that point. But basically, capital expenditure and operational expenditure is a common term that you'll have to come to terms with in business cases. Many of you will be using these hard numbers and they're quite large numbers, so get used to them. But the perception in Sid's book is that CapEx, capital expenditure, is a lot easier to request because it's a one-off request rather than the operational expenditure that hits you monthly and comes up on the accounting sheets more than once, perhaps 12 times over a 12-month period. So, you know, that brings with it benefits and costs, aging assets in your organization, assets that can break down, require maintenance. And it's interesting to see that kind of notion, but for those who have had exposure in government, you'd know what Sid was saying was 100% correct. So regulations and tooling, that's very important. Adhering to regulations, ensuring that you've gone to a fair tender process, that you've shortlisted, and that you've identified. And tender processes, that was my bread and butter before I started in academia. They can start with requests for information, an RFI, going to a request for proposal, an RFP, right through to a request for quotation off the bat, an RFQ. And the bid comes in, people are able to respond to the bid, and then a team of account managers or agencies will look at this information. People are vested towards this in terms of shortlisting, and a set of criteria are identified and the shortlist happens. Usually, if it's a very large scale tender, then you will have presentations, there will be demonstrations, demos, and there will be proof actually that the contractor can do what they can do. And then someone is either chosen in a mutually exclusive way, or they're chosen with multi-party kinds of solutions. So the government agency doesn't place all their eggs in one basket, and they have multiple vendors that are servicing different components that work together in a solutions architecture. Importantly, the concept of time, we mentioned that in the previous chapter. Bureaucracies are synonymous with red tape and things taking a long time, but as Sid says, there's a reason why they take a long time, and you have to make good decisions. You're using other people's money. It's not shareholder money, it's citizen money. And there, again, the concept of stewardship is amplified by Sid. And becoming part of the relay is knowing how these cycles work, what kinds of things may be tendered for, what kinds of procurement are being required, and being a stakeholder in this loop. Also for government agencies to become more astute about how they reach suppliers and the satisfaction of that supply, and then feedback, either to influence a plan of records to say, look, I think we're going to require this kind of functionality in our telecommunications equipment or our PABX systems or digital voice systems, or internet buttons, whatever it might be that organization is encountering or thinking about. But yeah, surely it's a big regulated space. There are a lot of penalties for those who are not compliant, and it's a very serious thing to be considering outlays and abiding by rules and regulations and inclusivity.